So Richard Prebble has resigned from the Waitangi Tribunal. He was appointed to it in October 2024, I believe, so he hasn't been in there particularly long. And I can kind of understand why he wanted out. He obviously couldn't handle just how utterly insane the people there are. That's enough to drive anyone insane, let alone someone who was actually involved with the Labour Party at the time the Waitangi Tribunal kind of was starting to get off the ground. I'm not surprised he's resigned, though it's kind of unhelpful. But I wanted to cover some of the reasons he's provided for resigning, because I think it's very, very important that we understand from someone who's been involved with it just what is going on there. Because as Annie O'Brien here is pointing out, it's behind a paywall, and so obviously the New Zealand Herald doesn't want you to know just quite how crazy the Waitangi Tribunal is and why we simply can't trust them. So here's Richard Prebble, quite a few quotes from Richard Prebble from this article about why he has left the Waitangi Tribunal. So yes, certainly follow along. It'll be very, very informative. I have resigned as a member of the Waitangi Tribunal. The treaty is our founding document, two peoples peacefully agreeing to form a nation. When in Parliament, I supported the tribunal being able to investigate historical breaches of the treaty. The treaty is clear. It is a preamble and 3 articles. We also have the instructions to Governor Hobson. The Crown offered its protection, guaranteed property rights, and extended the rights of British citizenship. In return, Māori ceded sovereignty, agreed to the Crown having the right of preemption, and accepted the duties of citizenship. The Waitangi Tribunal has declared it is not bound by previous tribunal rulings that sovereignty was ceded or by decisions of the courts. The tribunal now says there are 2 treaties, one in English and another in Te Reo. They are not translations of each other, according to the tribunal. Accordingly, the tribunal has turned the treaty upside down and ruled sovereignty was not ceded. The Crown pledged to enhance the chief's authority. Queen Victoria agreed to govern in partnership with 650 chiefs. It is for Māori to decide what is to be decided by Māori. Māori were promised economic equality, and Māori only agreed that the Crown could control settlers. There were chiefs who had been to Australia and England, chiefs who signed the English text, chiefs who did not sign because they said they could not or they would not cede sovereignty. No chief, including Honeheke, who may have regretted signing, ever said that sovereignty had not been ceded. Letters written by chiefs who signed the treaty to governors complaining the treaty was not being honoured never denied that sovereignty had been ceded. Partnership is a 20th century invention. Having a tribunal that does not follow court rulings or its own previous findings is politically destabilizing and unsustainable. Article 3, which granted the rights and privileges of being British subjects, has been reinterpreted to be the promise that successive governments will ensure equality, the socialist dream. Governments can deliver equality before the law, the right of British citizens. No government ever, anywhere, has delivered economic equality. As we will never have economic equality, the tribunal has created an endless grievance that can never be met. I recently received a copy of the tribunal's proposed 10-year strategic plan. The tribunal was going to be very busy hearing claims that inequality is a breach of the treaty. The tribunal's rulings only have legal effect when the Crown adopts them. The Labour government and now National have failed to respond to the tribunal's radical ruling. The Minister of Justice should have upheld earlier tribunal decisions that sovereignty was ceded. In absence of political leadership, the civil service has adopted the tribunal's invented treaty principles. In my letter of resignation, I have recommended the government implement its coalition agreement and upgrade the tribunal by appointing a senior High Court judge, as was done when the tribunal was first set up. The tribunal insults the chiefs when it says the chiefs did not mean to accept the Crown's protection, create a nation, protect their property rights, and extend citizenship to all Māori. I will not participate in turning the treaty into a socialist manifesto. Ignoring the issue is not the answer. It is time for the Prime Minister to lead and uphold that there is one treaty, one country, and one citizenship. Now, all of that is extremely consistent with what I myself have been harping on about for probably the better part of 2.5, 3 years now. Certainly on X, if not here on YouTube and elsewhere. TikTok, notably, is something I'm always having this conversation, especially at the moment. I'm saying, hey, look, the Waitangi Tribunal can't be trusted. The claims that they are making about the Treaty of Waitangi are based on ideological fabrications that they themselves are responsible for. They do not reflect what the treaty says. They've got no interest in reflecting what the treaty says because that goes against their ideological position on the matter. It goes against what they want to achieve through the use of the Waitangi Tribunal's powers. It is actually insane that we actually need someone who was part of the Labour government around this time that the Waitangi Tribunal was being established to resign from the tribunal and state all of this. This is the sort of stuff that the media should have been telling you every single day for the last decade, quite frankly. But no, the media has no interest in doing that. You need some loser on the internet like myself to do it. So it's a indictment on the media, for starters, that they aren't being open and saying, hey, look, yes, the tribunal are quite literally looking at the treaty, making assertions about what it means that aren't supported anywhere in the treaty itself, and they're making decisions and recommendations to the government based on that. Recommendations the government then goes and implements. So it's insanity. And I applaud Richard Prebble for coming out and writing this article, even if it is hidden behind a paywall, presumably at the New Zealand Herald's decision rather than his own. I don't know. That is what it is. But it highlights here that what we need to do is dramatically reform the tribunal. If it's going to remain, it needs to be put on a leash, because this sort of nonsense cannot continue. They have reinvented the Treaty of Waitangi by just ignoring what it says and deciding that they will dictate exactly what it means, regardless of what it says, and we will accept it. And if you don't accept it, you're a racist. If you don't accept it, then you're better off resigning from the Waitangi Tribunal. Now, my good friend Simon Anderson pointed out that this is unhelpful from Richard Prebble, that resigning right now is unhelpful because we need people like him to be involved with it, so that, one, they can try and change things from within, but also keep tabs on what exactly the Waitangi Tribunal are doing. And Richard Prebble points out that he has seen their 10-year plan, which is just going to result in a lot of grievances being levelled and being brought forward to the tribunal about so-called breaches relating to inequality. Now, the fact that he has insight into that is extremely useful, and him resigning means he's not going to have as much insight anymore, and that does us all a disservice. But I suppose you can only be driven so far, and on a principled level, he's resigning because he simply cannot involve himself with such radicals within the Waitangi Tribunal and the surrounding areas of the public sector, the judiciary in particular. And he says himself, I will not participate in turning the treaty into a socialist manifesto. And that very much does appear to be how it is being utilized. It's to achieve political, ideological objectives that are separate from the treaty itself and the intentions and the reasons behind why the tribunal was established.